Good morning, everybody. I'll call to order the June 13th, 2024 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners business meeting. Chair Smith is attending virtually today while she recovers from her health issue. Is she here with us?
Yes.
Are you there, Chair? She's there.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Ben.
Good. Good to have you with us, Chair. County Administrator Gary Schmidt is out of the office today due to a family emergency. County Operating Officer Nancy Bush is acting County Administrator today and will be staffing this meeting. Thank you, Nancy, for filling in and acting as the Administrator. Nancy Bush, can you please do the roll call for us?
Absolutely. So first in the room, we have Tony Mayornick, Clerk to the Board. We have Jane Vito, who is the County Counsel. Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair West.
Here. Now I'll lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you're joining us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public that Robert's Rules of Order will be followed in this business meeting. We welcome your opinions and we look forward to your polite participation. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. Do we have Ms. Lindstrom with us?
Yeah, do we have Ann in the room?
Is Ann here with us?
Commissioner Leenstra, are you present?
I am present.
Good morning, Ms. Leenstra. Nancy, can you please introduce the first item for us?
Yes, the first is the Housing Authority consent agenda. And Tony, could you please read that consent agenda for us?
Housing Authority consent agenda, 2 items. Item 1, approval of resolution 1988, authorizing multifamily housing revenue bond documents for the Hillside Park Building C redevelopment project. Bonds to be issued not to exceed $39 million, funding through bond proceeds. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of resolution 1989, designating authorized officers to finalize, execute, and deliver all documents and agreements related to the Hillside Park redevelopment project, Building C. Total project value $65 million. Funding is through federal, state, local, and private funding sources. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you, Tony, for reading that consent agenda. Does any commissioner wish to remove any items from this consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the
Go ahead.
Housing Authority consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
I have an approval from Commissioner Leenstra to approve the consent agenda. I have a second from Commissioner Shull. Do you have any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Shull.
Aye.
Commissioner Leenstra.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, moving along. The motion was approved, 6-0, so now we will adjourn as the Clackamas County Housing Authority Board and convene as the Service District 5, that is the Street Lighting District Board of Directors. Nancy, what's next?
So next, we have a public hearing for the Service District Number 5 street lighting. Number 1, approval of board order forming new assessment areas within Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Current value from the addition of 21 assessment areas is estimated at $64,000 annually. Funding through ratepayers. No county general funds are involved. And we have Dan Johnson, Director of Department of Transportation Development, and Randy Coriel from Service District Specialist. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tony, you are messing with this chair, aren't you? Yeah, okay. Hey, everybody. Vice Chair West, commissioners, we are here. This is not new to you, essentially just for the sake of the audience we have in the room and their interest in street lighting, and the folks that may be on watching us via TV. We have a street lighting district in Clackamas County. That lighting district, street lighting is provided through 3 different opportunities, one of which is through capital improvement projects that we may do or others may do. Second is through development. It's a condition of approval. A lot of our development applications, if you're in the district, to put street lighting up on your frontage. And last but not least, there's always the possibility or opportunity for citizens to petition us to provide street lighting on their particular street. When that street lighting is provided, we have to go through this process, basically establishing new assessment areas. So to discuss the proposal before you today, I introduce Wendy Coriel, who can go through that proposal in more detail.
Good morning, Commissioners. Wendy Coriel with Clackamas County Service District Number 5. As Dan indicated, there's 3 avenues. The projects before you today are through the land use approval process, where we get all new residential, commercial, industrial, multifamily developments within the urban areas of Clackamas County and the city of Happy Valley. There's 21 areas before you today, and 12 are in the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County, and 9 are in the city of Happy Valley. 4 of the areas will come under Rate B, which is $47 per tax lot each year. And these projects will have county roadway or Cobra roadway style lighting on existing wood poles. One of the areas is Rate C, which is $65 per tax lot each year. And these projects will come under the same style lighting, Cobra roadway, and these will have new fiberglass style poles. 8 of the areas come under Rate D, which is our commercial rate. This is at $1.16 per frontage foot per tax lot each year. These will also have the Cobra style lighting on new fiberglass poles. And there's 2 areas under Rate H at $86 per tax lot each year. And these will also come under the Cobra style lighting on fiberglass poles. And finally, there's 6 areas that will come under Rate W. This is a city of Happy Valley rate that is at $227 per tax lot each year. These projects will have Aurora-style lighting, previously called Westbrook-style lights, and that's it for those areas. The property owners of these have signed an approval for the assessment prior to meeting and prior to the installation on these projects. And prior to scheduling today's hearing, the Street Lighting District notified all the property owners for each of these areas in writing of this public meeting to discuss any questions that they have and to review the next steps in the process. There were no remonstrances received from that mailing, and that pretty much concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
So
Dan.
real quick, just for the sake of discussion, again, the budget, you are part of the budget committee. You hear all these different rates that are out there. We haven't increased our rates this last year, nor do we intend to increase them next year. And the rates differ, and the reason I want to talk about that, the rates differ based on the type of lighting that's being provided. There's some lighting that's of a higher quality and a higher standard that requires a higher rate. Those lighting qualities and differences are a lot, especially the ones in the Happy Valley, are a choice of that jurisdiction to put that type of lighting in there. So just a discussion around the different rates you're seeing before you today.
Thank you. Anything further from you?
That's it.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Do any of the commissioners have any clarifying questions or comments?
I will speak after the hearing piece.
Okay, thank you. I'll now open the meeting to public testimony. I'll take in-person testimony first on this specific lighting district issue. And I will now ask the clerk if there's anybody on Zoom, or is there anybody, I don't have any cards for anybody in the audience, but is there anybody in Zoom?
If you would like to testify on the Service District Number 5 public hearing, please use the raise hand feature and I will call on you in the order received. Mr. Vice Chair, I do not have any hands raised.
Last call for anybody in the audience that wants to talk about lighting district stuff. Seeing none, we'll move forward. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to now close the public hearing and ask if there are any further discussion from the board, or we can have a motion and then go into discussion, however you guys want to go.
Sure, I just want to acknowledge that everything today, and I'll get to the lighting district, everything today on the consent agenda for everything, you'll see that the last sentence says no county general funds. And for several reasons, that's the case. But I point that out to say that I appreciate voter-initiated efforts in which people take the initiative to support or not taxing themselves for some kind of improvement. And the lighting district in this case is not really where all the voters of the district, but the district is a mechanism in which people can build on and by petition, majority petition, circulate a petition, and the community can gather around. I've been part of 2 of those in my area. And we've done this before, but I just want to highlight that I appreciate the people taking the initiative to tax themselves, because in our inflationary times and our budgetary constraints and pressures, it's ever so significant. So just want to give my appreciation for those folks doing that.
Terrific, thank you. Any other, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the board order forming new assessment areas within Clackamas County Service District number 5.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Schull to approve the board order forming new assessment areas within Clackamas County Service District number 5. And the second has been brought to us by Commissioner Schrader. Do we have any further discussion on this motion before us? I am seeing none. Clerk, please take the poll.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Director Schrader.
Aye.
Director Schull.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Let's see here. I'll now adjourn as the Service District Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Nancy, what's next?
All right, thank you. Next, we have a public hearing, which is first reading of an ordinance permanently banning psilocybin product manufacturers and psilocybin service centers in the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County. No fiscal impact. No county general funds are involved. And we have Caleb Hugel here, which is Assistant County Counsel, for the presentation. Caleb?
Thank you, Nancy. This chair is really low. Good morning, Commissioners. In 2020, Oregon voters passed Measure 109, which legalizes limited psilocybin sales and use in Oregon, and which requires the Oregon Health Authority to license and regulate psilocybin product manufacturers, testing laboratories, service centers, and service facilitators. And OHA began issuing those licenses last year. One thing Measure 109 does is it allows local governments to adopt ordinances banning psilocybin product manufacturers and service centers within their jurisdictions, subject to approval by the voters. In 2022, this board adopted an ordinance temporarily banning those uses. That ordinance was referred to and approved by the voters, but that ban expires at the end of this year. At a policy session on May 15th, you directed us to schedule a public hearing and draft for referral to the voters this November, an ordinance permanently banning those uses. The draft ordinance is attached to the staff report. Another purpose of the policy session was to find out what questions you have that would help you in making that decision. The first was how Measure 109 relates to Measure 110. As you all know, Measure 110 was also adopted in 2020. It decriminalized the personal possession of a variety of controlled substances in Oregon, including psilocybin. Essentially, Measure 110 reduced the punishment associated with possession of small amounts of psilocybin. Possession was still against the law under Measure 110, but the penalty was reduced. By contrast, Measure 109 allows folks to use psilocybin in limited circumstances, meaning at a licensed service center under the supervision of a licensed service facilitator, with no penalty, but only in those limited circumstances. House Bill 4002, which was passed by the legislature this year, increases the penalty associated with personal possession of psilocybin, but not in the limited circumstances allowed under Measure 109. So there's what Measure 109 allows, and there's everything else. Measure 110 and House Bill 4002 affected the everything else. You also asked what the positive and negative effects have been for jurisdictions that did not ban psilocybin product manufacturers and service centers. and you asked about the efficacy of psilocybin use in general. We asked Dr. Sarah Present, the Clackamas County Health Officer and a member of the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board, which advises OHA in implementing this program, and she's here with us today to respond to this question. As I understand it, the main positive effect in counties that didn't ban these uses is that we now have the ability to provide psilocybin services in an above-board regulated manner. To the extent that there has been negative feedback, it's that the program is very expensive for clients and providers to get going. On the efficacy piece, it's been difficult in the past for the state to collect data, but legislation adopted in 2023 is going to make that easier going forward. The medical literature, as I understand it, indicates that there may be benefits associated with psilocybin use with a low risk of harm, but if you have specific questions about that, I'll ask you to direct them to Dr. Present later in this public hearing. You also asked about the county's role in enforcing the state's psilocybin regulations. The answer is that there really isn't any. If someone has concerns about a licensed service center in their neighborhood, they file a complaint with the OHA. If someone has concerns about non-licensed psilocybin sales or use, they report it to law enforcement. The county only has a role if we decide to adopt time, place, and manner regulations into our local code, and then it would become like any other code enforcement matter. And finally, you asked of the counties that adopted temporary bans in 2022, which of them are planning on adopting permanent bans this election cycle. In 2022, 24 counties adopted bans, only 4 of them were temporary. The rest were permanent. The 4 temporary bans were adopted in Clackamas, Clatsop, Malheur, and Tillamook counties. My understanding is that Clatsop County is considering whether or not it wants to adopt a permanent ban. We don't know about Malheur and Tillamook at this time. Staff recommends that you hold this public hearing and schedule a second reading and public hearing on June 27th, 2024 at 10 a.m. If you adopt the ordinance after the second reading, we would prepare a ballot title and explanatory statement for your approval at a future policy session. We would also ask you whether you want us to explore time, place, and manner regulations in the event that the ban is rejected by the voters, so that we have something lined up. If you have any additional questions, Dr. Present and I are here to try and answer them, and thank you.
Thank you, Caleb, for that presentation. I will now open up the meeting to public testimony. I'll take in-person testimony first on this specific item on psilocybin. Do we have no new cards? Anybody in the audience want to testify or comment on the issue of psilocybin in Clackamas County? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Tony, anybody on Zoom? Any for public communication?
If you would like to testify on the ordinance banning psilocybin facilities in Clackamas County, please use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you in the order received. Mr. Vice Chair, I do not have any hands raised.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, so it looks like I have no public comment with this, so I'll close the public hearing and ask if there's any further discussion on this issue. I have some thoughts, but I'll go ahead and see if any of my fellow commissioners have any comments about psilocybin, about what we're doing here. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, okay, so on this proposed ban in unincorporated Clackamas County, you know, I've read that recently some of the counties and cities that do have offered the psilocybin clinics that due to expense of operation and expensive service that some of those are closing for lack of customers. For people in Clackamas County who are in unincorporated Clackamas County, they don't have far to go should they elect to use the psilocybin because Multnomah County, Washington County, and Yamhill County, and some of our cities have authorized this service. So I don't believe by banning it in unincorporated Clackamas County is going to preclude anyone who lives in unincorporated Clackamas County from getting access to psilocybin, should they desire that drug.
I tend to agree with you, Commissioner Scholl. Am I correct? Where did Caleb go? I'm going to stay there for a minute. And is the physician in the room?
Dr. President is in the room. Would you like her to?
Yeah, come on up, just in case. Yeah, I might have a couple questions for you. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Am I correct that Milwaukee has already allowed this and within their city limits,
I believe so.
which is in Clackamas County? Have any other of our 16 cities allowed this service?
Most of them in the urban portions of the county.
So Wilsonville, Westland, Lakeo,
My understanding is that those jurisdictions didn't adopt bans, so
they
it's
just
allowed.
kind of, it's just there now.
Yeah.
So they're open to it. Okay. So it is quite accessible already in the county. I do have a couple of questions around efficacy and some of the medical research. Some of my consternation is, if we're learning on the fly here, like with the public, that concerns me. And because it was really passed as, in my opinion, as a recreational type of experience more than it was something that was a medical opportunity for treatment or therapy. I want to kind of better understand the potential, like evidence that's out there and studies that show its efficacy as treatment, because I think sometimes we use that as something to sell to the public when there's all these other things attached, when much of it is recreational use, considering we have such a pro-drug culture in Oregon, and we've seen kind of the outcomes of that. I'm curious about your thoughts around the treatment side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this on? So there has been a fair amount of medical research done on psilocybin experiences in other countries. So some places in Europe, Scandinavia, and Amsterdam, of course, as well as some not as high quality research in South and Central America. I think that there is very good suggestion that there is a role for psilocybin experiences in treating medical and behavioral health concerns like PTSD and around end-of-life fear and sort of the death process. That's where a lot of the research in other countries has been, and there's very promising work there without much evidence of harms. I think when this came to Oregon, there's also the concern that for many people who want to use these services to address, say, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the medical system may not be the place that they are best going to be treated for their trauma. And there is a sort of spiritual and healthy wellness component to it, and I think that's where the recreational side comes into play. But the program itself is really focused on not having this be a recreational experience. There's a slew of things that the facilitators are trained on and need to go through with the client in the session before the administration session. So you meet with the client before the actual psilocybin experience and go through a lot of information, a lot of, I can talk more about that. And so it's really meant to be a service to the client for what they are looking to get out of it, right? And that's part of what they talk about in that session before the administration is, why are you doing this? What is your goal? How do we best reach that goal? And then after the administration session, there's an integration session option that people can opt out of if they choose to, where they come back with a facilitator and talk through it and see, if they met that goal, if they had new thoughts on it. So it's built based on a therapeutic program as is seen in some other countries. But there's also a demedicalization of it that has been an active choice of the Oregon voters. Does that?
Yeah, I understand that. I guess my question is it's still really new here, like right now new. And so my concern is when we're giving some type of psychotropic medication or substance or chemical into the human brain, and that's not being monitored. It doesn't sound like by a physician. I can potentially take much less harmful drugs or risky drugs that need to be prescribed by a physician than potentially like what the risks are with psilocybin. I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts around it not being monitored at all or having any physician oversight with something so new that I think that there still needs to be more testing. I appreciate what's been done overseas, but I'm not convinced we're there yet and where we're giving people basically a go ahead.
Understood. And I know that the Health Officer Caucus is similarly frustrated at the lack of data collection that we have so far. Again, service centers only opened their doors about a year ago. There are, I think, only about 30 of them in the state of Oregon, if that. But House Bill, I had the numbers, sorry, I lose numbers in my head when I'm in public. As of January 1st, 2025, there is fairly extensive data collection, de-identified data that will be required to be reported to OHA. And that has to do with how much people are using, what their intentions are, sort of the setting, how long their administrations ended up being, which I can talk more about that as well, and response, including any positive sort of feedback versus, as well as any negative consequences. So data collection is coming. And I agree, there's a paucity of data around it in the United States right now, and that is a reality. I can say that some psychiatric providers at OHSU are working with the Portland VA, and they are doing active research on psilocybin right now. And there are a couple, I'm sorry, I'm losing some words.
That's okay.
There's another university in New York that's doing some
Okay.
pretty active research on it. So more to come. But I think that the psychotropic medications that we have right now to address complex trauma and grief are not adequate. And I do think that that's, what the voters are trying to address as a way to address mental health issues that we don't currently have a good medical system for, and it's uncomfortable when it's a medical type thing done, not a non-medical situation. I fully understand that.
And I would wish that before we open up floodgates here through policy, that we'd be more data-driven in our efforts. And this is still somewhat sounds speculative in what we're doing, what the public wants to try to do. In the environment in which we do live in today, where substance abuse issues are real in Oregon in a way that maybe some other places across the country don't face, but this is a problem here. So gotta be careful not to conflate the two, but I don't feel like the data is there for me to feel comfortable, promoting this as evidence-based or something that should be, have the stamp of the government approval on it to give it legitimacy. Because the moment we say, hey, we're fine with it, people will look at that as further legitimacy, as if this is safe and perfect and fine, and we don't totally have that evidence yet, I don't feel like. Commissioner Schrader.
I do agree with Commissioner West with this, but I have a question. With the other psychotropic medications, have they gone through a process, and are they administered by nurse practitioners, trained physicians, things of that sort?
So other medications that we would use in the setting of PTSD have, in particular, and there are a number of conditions that we can think of, but in particular PTSD have gone through the FDA approval process, which includes a lot of evidence-based research and things like prazosin for nightmares, right? That went through a similarly extensive, particularly in the VA. That's where a lot of the research is being done. And there's a lot of research on, I think 3 sites of VAs that are doing research on psilocybin. And we're not there, and that's part of why I was uncomfortable with the measure and wanted to be on the board to ensure safety as well. I have to acknowledge that.
Well, thank you for that, because that is really, that's what my issue is, because I think we have an FDA for a reason, to go through a process and to manage what the positive and negative effects are, And I agree with you. I think I think that the data will prove that it will be extremely helpful for people, but I don't have, I think the Oregon Health Authority is not the place for this to be managed. I think it has to be a larger federal process that has more sideboards on it, because any medication we give people or they choose to take is going to have side effects that are negative and positive. And I'm not feeling as if that information has been fully explored yet in a way that makes me feel comfortable. That's I guess you explained it better than I did, but that's the hurdle I'm having with it, is I think that I'm not disputing the fact that it may have some positive medical uses, but I'm not sure this is the venue or the process that we should be moving it through.
Thank you. Do we have Chair Smith that'd like to
Yes,
comment?
Yes.
Chair Smith, please, you are up.
Thank you, Commissioner West. I would agree with the last two comments from the commissioners. You know, commissioners, we make decisions based on a point in time, and today is our point in time. We have taken very hard positions on Measure 110 and addictive properties and the use of drugs. I think we need to be consistent in supporting this ban, but it doesn't mean things can't change for the future. Keep in mind that you can buy these mushrooms online where it's totally unregulated. And the piece that I found objectionable in this is that a person can go into one of these facilities. They can have a piece of mushroom given to them. They can ingest it, and then they can leave in an altered state and drive a car. Now, in most cases, that's called, if it's alcohol-induced, a DUI, or any other substance abuse, it's a DUI. So I have trouble with that today. I'm not saying that, I don't want to exclude the fact that these mushrooms could be effective in at least two of the modalities that Dr. Present has mentioned today. I think that's very important, but I don't think that we're quite there yet on that. I appreciate this discussion. And Dr. President, I want to say that I do appreciate very much your willingness to sit on the board and learn as much as possible about the use of these mushrooms as a possible help for people who are suffering certain physical and mental problems. I do think that's very important. I'm not closed-minded to that. But my point of view today is based on today's point in time that we need to continue on the path and support the ban. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Really quick, can you clarify, is that a risk of people like under their own power leaving? Is there a real risk? I'm just curious, I don't know.
So the rules are very clear to try to prevent that. So there are minimum hours based on the amount ingested for that administration session, from 1 to for a very small subperceptible dose, minimum is 1 hour, up to 6 hours. But the facilitators are trained in how to address whether.
Into the microphone.
Okay,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yes, there is a in rule. This has been considered extensively. There are minimum requirements based on the amount of psilocybin ingested as far as the minimum time for administration session. The facilitators, as part of their training, are trained in how to ensure that people are safe to leave, that their administration is over, that they are no longer, significantly under the influence before they let them go. In the preparation session, which happens, at least a day prior to the administration session, there is a transportation plan. That is one of the required forms. So they are not allowed to drive themselves away. They need to identify who is going to give them a ride home. And the facilitator needs to facilitate a ride that's safe if needed. But so they have to have a transportation plan before they're allowed into the administration session. Additionally, the facilitator has to attempt to reach them within 72 hours afterwards to check in. But yeah, there's been a lot of thought put into not letting people drive home.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, Dr. President. For those counties and cities that have allowed the production, manufacturing of psilocybin and the psilocybin service centers, I think going back to early 2021,
Apologize, let me take it out.
You're fine.
have they, those cities and counties in the state of Oregon, experienced difficulty in the administration of the regulation, the state regulation that controls this manufacturing and the service centers? Is it happening in an efficient way? Or another way to ask the question is, what is the burden on those cities and counties in the way of administration to ensure that the regulations on the manufacturing of psilocybin products and the service centers in their jurisdiction is happening in accordance with the regulations?
I'm not aware of any concerns or increased burden in those counties that have allowed it.
Okay, well, that's,
Really, we've heard
It's-
very little problems.
okay, thank you.
Is this, I don't want to sound too naive, but I think it's a fair question. My learning of any of this was like hearing about ayahuasca type experiences, and then there's like profound vomiting, and there's like this hallucinations that happen. Is that what potentially happens in this session, like a ayahuasca? And who is certified, or what is their qualifications to provide something that's gives such powerful hallucinations and cyclical vomiting? I'm just.
My understanding is that ayahuasca does cause a lot of, it's expected to cause vomiting and diarrhea, and psilocybin is not. Some people will have some nausea and potentially vomiting, but that's not a sort of a trademark of psilocybin as it is for ayahuasca. As far as who the facilitators are, it was written into Measure 110 that you could not require greater than high school degree to become accepted into a facilitation training program. That being said, the training programs and what goes into the curriculum for the training programs and the amount of time spent on different parts of the curriculum was also set out in rule. I don't recall exactly. I believe it's about 120-hour minimum. And then the training programs are certified, right? So a facilitator cannot be the person facilitating the psychedelic experience without graduating from a training program.
Is there a practicum requirement with the training?
Yes, yes, there is it had been, I believe, 30 hours practicum, which initially facilitators were allowed to get their practicum with other forms, so like holotropic breath work or potentially ketamine therapy, which are not psychedelic therapies, but we didn't have a legalized structure yet. So the recommendation that is going to rule change is that they have to have practicum in actually working with psilocybin services and with a psilocybin facilitator, now that there are some to actually do that training, which I think is incredibly important. I think that answers the question.
So doctor, I'm a cardiology nurse, and you're a physician. This seems, and maybe I'm wrong, like the bare minimum of education necessary. Like it's not a lot when we're dealing with. What is your opinion on whether this is an adequate amount of training for this type of oversight?
I think that the structure for the training is pretty good. I think that part of the curriculum is for facilitators to understand the risks of their individual clients, and if they are really out of scope, if they have complex schizophrenia, they're not considered acceptable clients. They're not eligible for services. Certain people with health conditions like underlying heart disease, the facilitator curriculum does talk about when there are medical questions, the facilitator is responsible for not taking on that client if there's any question of their safety. I think that's the best that we can do in our current situation. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's new enough that I don't know how well that training is.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of my concern too. I know that really quality assessment skills in medicine are not acquired in the 30-hour practicum. They're just not. So that's part of my concern. Paul, you're up.
Yeah, my comment is not, well, it covers this, but it's more about a number of things, so you'll understand what I'm going to say when I start speaking here, and that is that, 8, 9 years ago, when marijuana was made legal in the state of Oregon, I think the legislators thought that we could regulate it. And turns out that we can't. We don't. The black market is still alive and well, and crime is, issues around that is still prevalent today. As a matter of fact, I was reading an article about the illegal activity around marijuana grows that are ran by Chinese gangs in the United States. So that's how prolific it has become. But to pretend that we can regulate it, I think is a falsehood, especially when there's opportunity for money to be made. And sometimes, again, illicit activities, black market, so forth, runs away with itself. Granted, I understand the recreational aspects of it, that people want to have that for those purposes. That's great. Some people made the argument about medical marijuana. Of course, there was a big discussion about that, and that's, I'm not arguing the medicinal aspects of that. Measure 110 and 109 came along, and then pretty soon people just assumed, right? The barn doors open. The public assumes that, oh, they made marijuana legal, so it's legal to do everything now. We can grow it, we can smoke it, we can do anything. We can drive cars, we can drive planes, so on and so forth. And, the incident with the airline pilot on psilocybin was a great example of concerns about people trying to self-medicate and not doing it legally, right? I have more faith, a little bit more faith, not a lot, in the federal government being able to regulate things like this than I do local legislators and local legislation. I don't care what state you're in. In my industry, I've certainly learned that, I just wish there was more thought into how regulations are put forth, even on the federal side. So, unrelated to the drug industry, that it also has ramifications when lawmakers who don't know a particular industry start making laws because they have a good idea, it's well intended, but at the end of the day, the consequences actually undermine the whole well-intended legislation in all. So the floodgate issue with this, I think, is already opened up, right? The floodgates for psilocybin, the floodgates for fentanyl, Measure 110, and how we reverse that, I don't know how long it'll take, but I think we need to be mindful as governments, lawmakers, and the people we lobby for, that the minute we say it's okay, the public perception is it's safe, and it's safe for kids, right? Oh, well, geez, mom and dad are doing that, so gee, I can do that too. Or, so it just, I guess the self-medication gray market, the illicit activities that it perpetuates, I think we ought to be smart enough to realize that's what's going to happen, that's a consequence. And that's why, I think our ban, I appreciate we're acting on behalf of what the voter will is here, based on our measure. But at the end of the day, I don't think, as we know that the cities have allowed this or not taken action, so therefore it's allowed. People don't know where the boundary of a city is, and they certainly can go to unincorporated, where I live, for example, in Oak Grove, unincorporated, and just, trot on over to wherever it's available. They don't know where the city line. It doesn't matter. So I think this is, I guess a good faith effort. It is a hearing, or was a hearing, and I know we spent a lot of time on this, but I just have just concerns that when people are out there driving, whether flying planes or whatever they may do, they're putting everyone at risk, and even pedestrians, been pedestrian accidents and bicycle accidents where people have been under the influence and either taken their own life or taking the lives of others. And I think that's something that we need to be more mindful of when it comes to the safety of our public, and that's our job.
Yeah.
Lots said, doesn't have a lot of meaning, but just want to broadcast that.
No, thank you for that. Can these centers not just be used for therapeutic purposes, but also recreation? Is it only for some type of therapeutic diagnosis or therapeutic reason? Or can you just say, hey, I'm feeling a little blue today, I like to do this, monitor me and watch me get high? Like, what are the parameters of being able to use a facility in the state of Oregon?
You do not have to, in the sort of hybrid, this is a therapeutic structure, but it is non-medicalized, so you do not need to have a diagnosis in order to get this. I do think the black market of psilocybin in Oregon there's a lot of it out there, and it's a lot less expensive to go find it on the black market than to do this process. So this process is really being sought out by people who want that facilitation and that structure and that sort of wellness support. And I think that if a client came to a facilitator and said, I just want to do it because it sounds fun, I think that the facilitator is trained to dig into it a little bit more. So there's some weird lines between medical and non-medical use, but there is pretty clear discussion of intent of why somebody wants to do this. So you do need to do a preparation session before you can have an administration session. There is no direct-to-consumer sales within the regulated market. It's really only through the service center purchases from the manufacturer through the lab, et cetera, and it's only given in a service center. So it's not related, well, the black market of psilocybin does continue. And I do know that when the measure passed, there was a store in Portland that started selling them. That is still illegal. And they were, law enforcement was called and that was stopped. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. I think I answered your question.
It just seems to be very blurry that we have it's supposedly treatment, but we have no diagnosis to attach to the treatment. It just is bizarre to me.
It's uncomfortable.
I'm close to and ready to entertain a motion. And Schrader, did you have comments or?
Just wanted to make one comment. I do apologize for that interruption, but what I was doing, I was trying to find information on marijuana use disorder, because that is another substance we've legalized. And yet, with the recent reading I've been doing, it does actually, with continued use, and people say it's not addictive, but I've had experience with folks where it seems to induce cognitive decline. Again, I'm not a medical person, but that's, so I apologize for that interruption, but I think the reason I am worried about psilocybin is because there's always going to be consequences to any kind of drug use. And I don't think that making marijuana illegal again is the answer, but we haven't really acknowledged some of the long-term decline in effects of the constant use of that. So I kind of feel the same way about psilocybin. But what you talked about is I don't think it's ready for prime time. So again, I did want to let people know that's where my mind jumped, so I didn't mean the interruption.
Thank you. Do I have any further comments? I'm willing to entertain a motion. I think I hear a lot of the board seems to be pointed in the same direction in its thoughts and a lot of continuity. I don't know where we're at with this, but is anybody wanting to make a motion or move on this?
Yeah, I move we read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Scholl that we read the ordinance by title only. I have a second by Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion on the motion before us today? I'm seeing no further discussion on this. Clerk, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much for your time in answering our questions. Thank you so much. The The motion is passed, so we are now going to move right along here. Where are we at here? Okay. We're going to move to the, it looks like the consent
Mr. Vice
agenda,
Chair,
Nancy, were we?
The clerk needs to read the motion.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
needs to read the, yeah.
Thank you for being patient with me. Please read the title. Thank you.
The ordinance will be numbered 02-2024, an ordinance permanently banning psilocybin product manufacturers and psilocybin service centers in the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County.
Do commissioners have any proposed changes to the amendments to the draft of an ordinance at this time? Not seeing any. The second reading will be Thursday, June 27th, 2024, at the board's regular scheduled business meeting at 10 a.m. Now, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Nancy, what is next?
All right, thank you. So next we have the consent agenda, and Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
Clackamas County Consent Agenda, Elected Officials, Item 1, approval of previous business meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners. Item 2, approval to apply for the Organized Retail Theft Grant from the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. Anticipated grant value is $400,000 over 15 months. Funding is through the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. No county general funds are involved for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Health, Housing, Human Services, Item 1, approval of amendment number 3, extending the term, updating the scope of work, and increasing the funding to a personal services contract with Northwest Family Services, operating Casa Esperanza for housing, navigation, and shelter. Amendment value $775,678 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $2,085,345.60 for 3 years. Funding through Metro Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds and $112,855 in budgeted county general funds. Item 2, approval of amendment number 1, extending the duration and increasing funding of a personal services contract with Catholic Charities for providing supportive housing, case management, resident services, and additional building support services and staff at Good Shepherd Village. Amendment value is $1,095,166.04 for 1 year for a new total contract value of $2,158,613.17 for 2 years. Funding through Metro Supportive Housing Services Measure Fund. No county general funds are involved. Item 3. Approval of amendment number 5, updating the scope of work, extending the term, and increasing funding of a personal services contract with Northwest Family Services for adult and youth housing services. Amendment value is $4,755,700.30 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $13,006,081.51 for 4 years. Funding through Metro Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval of a board resolution approving a $4 million loan for the Hillside Park Phase 1 project, Building C, and delegation of authority to finalize all documentation for closing. Agreement value is $4 million. Funding is through Federal Home Investment Partnership Program grant funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 5, approval of a resolution authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds for the Housing Authority of Clackamas County in a principal amount not to exceed $39 million to finance the construction of Hillside Park Building C. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Item 6, approval of amendment number 3, increasing funding of a personal services contract with LifeWorks Northwest for early assessment and support alliance services. Amendment value $82,314.44 for 12 months. Contract value increased to $1,580,350.49 for 4 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Item number 7, approval of amendment number 1, extending the term and increasing funding of a local subrecipient grant with Project Quest for non-opioid pain management services. Amendment value $121,600 for 6 months. Agreement value increased to $466,600 for 29 months. Funding through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Item 8, approval of the 2024 Community Development Action Plan and approve application for Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Investment Partnerships Program Grant funding. Total grant value $3,292,826 for 1 year. Funding through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Transportation and Development, Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas Community College to provide scholarships for student education programs. Total value is $100,000 for 1 year. Funding through county allocated Oregon lottery dollars. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a board order creating a dog services charitable fund. Total value is a one-time transfer of approximately $470,000 and then $25,000 per year. Funding through public donations. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of a contract with Baker & Taylor LLC for book and digital media purchasing and processing services. Total contract value $795,000 over 3 years. Funding through Oak Lodge and Gladstone Library District distributions. No county general funds are involved. Mr. Vice Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you so much for reading that consent agenda, Tony. Do any commissioners wish to remove any items from this consent agenda? I'm not seeing any. Can I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Schrader to approve the consent agenda, and the second has come from Commissioner Scholl. Any further discussion on this motion? I am seeing none. Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye.
Vice Chair West?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Moving right along, I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors. Nancy, what do we got?
So next, we have the Water Environment Services consent agenda. And Tony, would you please read that consent agenda?
One item, approval of a contract with R.L. Reimers Company for a chlorine contact basin gate replacement. Contract value $184,475. Funding through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund. No county general funds are involved.
That was a short and sweet consent agenda. Do I have any director that wants to remove the item from the consent agenda? I am seeing none. I will entertain a motion.
I move for approval of the Water Environment Services consent agenda.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Schrader to approve the consent agenda for environmental services, and the second by Director Savas. Any discussion on this? Tony, please take the poll.
Director Scholl?
Aye.
Director Savas?
Aye.
Director Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye.
Vice Chair West?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. I will now adjourn as the Water Environment Services Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. We are now to public communication. So this portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business, which are properly the object of the board's consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statute and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. I will now open the meeting for public testimony. I'm going to start with the in-person testimony first. And clerk, when the time comes, I'll have you moderate the communication via Zoom. I have a few cards here. We're going to start with, when you come up, just introduce yourself again, and then your area of residence would be terrific. And then make sure that you pull up to the mic so we can hear you, because if you don't, I get mean flashes from the AV guy in the back, so we can make sure that your testimony is on the public record and that we can all hear it. So just a friendly reminder, so I don't have to keep reminding. And it does look like one chair is oddly short to the ground compared to the other, so I apologize for that ahead of time. So we're going to start with, is it Lynn Pollard? Lynn, please come up, introduce yourself and your area of residence. You will have 3 minutes. Thank you so much for coming today.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lynn Pollard. I am a member of the Sandy Hoodland Library Advisory Board, and I'm a resident of Welch's in Hoodland. In 2008, as part of Measure 3310, forming the library district, responsibility for the operation of the 3 county libraries, Clackamas Town Center, Oak Lodge, and Hoodland, was transferred to the cities of Happy Valley, Gladstone, and Sandy. Capital contributions were to be limited to those set forth in the 2009 capital IGA. Since that time, the county has provided a turnkey library, building, and land to Happy Valley at no cost to the city. Oak Lodge and Gladstone have received millions from the county towards the construction of 2 new buildings. Only Sandy and Hoodland have abided by the terms of the IGA, and the Hoodland Library has received no additional money from the county and continues to pay rent for its library space out of its district revenue because the county never provided the Hoodland service area with a county-funded permanent home. Hoodland is a distinct service district. The city of Sandy has no responsibility to the Hoodland Library beyond the management services agreed to in the IGA. We are 2 distinct libraries with a shared management agreement. All costs incurred by the Hoodland Library are paid out of Hoodland's district revenue. As an exclusively unincorporated area, the county is effectively Hoodland's city, and you are the only body we can turn to for support. As the last of the 3 county-managed libraries, and the only one to receive no additional funding or a permanent home, we're asking the county demonstrate support for Hoodland by paying the library's rent for the next 5 years while coming up with a more permanent home for the library. Meeting this request does not open the door to additional requests from other libraries. It closes the door and closes the loop for the 3 county-managed libraries. To us, this is simply an issue of fairness. We're just asking for equal treatment. Our request was originally brought to the county in November 2022, and following discussions at the county, Commissioner Schull made a motion in support of this request at the issues meeting on January 16th, when the issue was tabled. We are asking you to act on our request and revive Commissioner Schull's motion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Okay, up next, is it Jerry McMahon? McMahon. Please come up. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jerry McMahon. I'm a citizen in Brightwood. I've been up there for over 40 years. So. The Hoodland is an area underserved by the county. We have no civic presence, and the library serves as an important community function. Situated on the eastern border of Clackamas County, we are harder to serve because of the distance involved. With the small census population, we are easily overlooked. As a gateway to Mount Hood, the icon of the county, we are a hub for tourists, but tourist dollars do not come back to support the civic infrastructure of our area. As dollars raised from the library tax in unincorporated Clackamas County are redistributed based on the census population figures, the very high density of second homes and STRs also means that not all money raised from the library tax in Hoodland come back to the Hoodland Library. Hoodland Library operates exclusively on tax dollars raised in the districts. As a result, it is not able to be open as many hours as other libraries. We have no Sunday openings or late openings, making it difficult for people working outside the Hoodland area. If Hoodland had received a capital infusion similar to either Gladstone or Oak Lodge, we would have received over 1.5 million more than enough to begin construction on a building, which would have made us eligible for COVID ARP monies, as were Gladstone and Oak Lodge. We are not asking for an equivalent sum. We are merely asking that you recognize the inherent disparity in the county's treatment of the three libraries and take steps to remedy that by paying the Hoodland rent for the next 5 years, allowing time to develop a more permanent solution. The rent of $25,000 a year for the next 5 years of $125,000. In the issues meeting on January 16th, I believe that Administrator Schmidt had indicated that he could cover this payment out of the administrator's budget. And we ask that you act on our request.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we now will have Kathleen Drain. Thank you, Kathleen. Please come up. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Kathleen Drain. I'm a member of the Sandy Hoodland Libraries Advisory Board, and until last fall, the representative to LDAC for 5 years on behalf of those libraries. My role today is to explain the data supporting Hoodland's request that the county cover its housing cost. If the county had limited itself to the generosity listed in the 2009 capital disbursement schedule for each library, we would have no standing to be here making our current request. But over the past 15 years, the county has been significantly more generous to both the Sunnyside and Oak Lodge libraries. Hoodland Library has been ignored. This request could be seen as the last step in the county providing sustainable housing for the whole trio of county-managed libraries from 2009. I provided a chart. I don't know if it's been shared with you, but I gave Commissioner West, sent Commissioner a chart demonstrating the extent of the county's generosity to the other two previously county-managed libraries. Happy Valley was supposed to provide a building and absorb the county's town center library with the benefit of a $2 million capital infusion. Happy Valley failed to do so. Instead, the county responsibly found a building in Sunnyside, renovated it with the allocated $2 million, and then transferred the improved building and land to Happy Valley at no cost in July 2015. The tax assessor's office valued the building and land in 2015 at approximately $7.5 million. So Happy Valley residents effectively received a gift of $5.7 million from the county above and beyond what the IGA required. Oak Lodge, the other county-managed library, also suffered delays in finding its ultimate home. Without getting into the Gladstone litigation, the fact remains that the construction of the new Oak Lodge Library has resulted in the county supplementing its IGA requirement to that area by $15.25 million. If you look at the chart, you'll see that I've netted out, in all instances, the IGA required money, the extra money that Oak Lodge did provide through its accumulated reserves, and state ARPA. So this 15.25 is net of all of the other funding that would have been pulled together from the IGA method. We are not here to say that those transactions should not have occurred. They should have. We are here to say that Hoodland's unincorporated residents deserve equal treatment and should have permanent housing for their library. That does not mean that it has to be a constructed building, but it does mean having sustainable funding. You'll see on the chart, may I continue?
Yeah, you can continue, please.
Using the Happy Valley numbers, you'll see that Hoodland residents would be entitled to an additional benefit of $594,000 using 2015 dollars. I calculated the present value of that number right now to $785,000. Using the Oak Lodge estimated construction numbers, Hoodland residents would be entitled to approximately $2.76 million. As you can see, the request the Hoodland Library is making to you today to cover its rent for the next 5 years pending a long-term solution is small in comparison to what equity would demand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I have one more card here. It's Michelle, is it Winter? Yeah, please come up and you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Michelle Winter and I live in Cherryville and I'm here as a board member of the Mount Hood Livability Coalition. And I'd like to read a prepared statement that the board has approved. And we are in support of police supporting our Hoodland Library. Subject, the vital role of Hoodland Library in our community. Dear Clackamas County Board, Mount Hood Livability Coalition is writing to express our support for Hoodland Library. Our library supports almost 2,000 active local residents, just under 10% being children. The library is a hub of services that are vital to our local community. Beyond books, a hub of learning and connection, Hoodland Library serves more than books. It offers a diverse range of resources, including access to high-speed internet, educational programs, and community events. Social and cultural anchor. Our library serves as a gathering place, a haven, where neighbors meet, exchange ideas, build relationships. It's where children attend story time, teens collaborate on projects, and seniors engage in book clubs. Economic opportunities. Reliable internet access is essential, and it is an issue up there on the mountain. Our library bridges the digital divide, providing a lifeline for job seekers, freelancers, and small business owners. Unlike our other rural libraries, and I have been corrected about this fact, I just wanted to read this as presented and voted on as our board because we did find out that some of the other two libraries, one of them is only having a temporary rent pay right now until their building is finished. Hoodland Library pays rent for its library space out of its district revenue because the county never provided the Hoodland service area with a county-funded permanent home. This severely impacts the ability of the library to provide services needed for the local community. We ask you to fully fund the library rent for the next 5 years while a permanent home can be found. And the Mount Hood Livability Coalition's mission statement is to cultivate a vibrant and sustainable mountain community, and we feel that this is an important issue to our community. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your public testimony. It was really great to hear from all of you, and thank you for making the trek to Oregon City, because it's a big county, and we love that mountain, but it's not close. Yeah.
We have one speaker on Zoom.
Oh, we do. We have one more. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Tony, who do we have via Zoom?
It's Teresa Pelletier.
Ms. Teresa Pelletier, would you please state your name and area of residence? You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Teresa Pelletier. I reside in Brightwood, and I'm a member of the Sandy Hoodland Library Advisory Board. Vice Chair, Commissioners, thank you for hearing from my fellow community members today. You've heard a lot of strong data supporting the argument that you, as elected representatives of Clackamas County, have an excellent and positive opportunity to show your commitment to some of our most rural and underserved residents. Yes, those of us making the trek in from hours away. And that's by providing funds for the Hoodland Library's rent for the next 5 years while determining a permanent, sustainable solution. So briefly, I'd like to underscore the meaning of that financial commitment. Yes, let's make data-driven decisions, but also let's keep our eye on the why it's so important to our community. And that's the outstanding value of quality library services and programs in our small area. A library is a symbol, it's a beacon to those passing by, those who visit, and those who live in this community. It's not only a reason to come to the community, it's a reason to stay in it. My partner and I moved to Oregon sight unseen in 2015, and I really didn't know what to expect other than our natural beauty. And throughout my life, the library has been a symbol of access, collaboration, safety, and fun, which I know for so many of you it has been as well. And while I hoped for the same, I didn't know it was possible in this small rural town 3,000 miles across the country. Thankfully, the answer was yes. Pulling into my new neighborhood in Welch's, amazed by my first views in Mount Hood, I couldn't believe my luck to see that library turn here symbol within walking distance. And I've now lived here for 10 years, and the Hood Library continues to be one of our community's most frequently visited, most bragged about features. It was a key factor in my family's decision to buy a house in this community and stay in this community. I'm being serious. I have a weighted cost-benefit trade-off analysis spreadsheet to prove it. From cultural passes and custom book bundles to partnerships with local schools and nonprofits, the Hoodland Library seems to do it all, and that's something we should feel proud of. But let's work together to fuel their aspirations to do even more. I encourage you to think of the many ways with now paid for rent dollars that we could provide even more goodness in the Mount Hood community. Let's work together to bring more books, more hours, more author talks, more of what the Hoodland community near and far wishes for. Ultimately, the library is one of the community's most sought after, visible, welcoming, accessible, and nourishing spaces. I truly believe that. I know so many of you do too. So let's please do our part as a community to nourish it back, to fund it right, and to free up those funds for the things our library does best, providing not only books, but also a beacon for this community. Thank you so much, and I hope to have some of you and your families' fondest memories of libraries in mind as you consider our request.
Terrific. Tony, do we have anyone else?
Mr. Vice Chair, Ms. Peltier is the only person on Zoom at the moment.
Perfect. Okay. Once again, thank you for making the journey out here and for calling in. We really appreciate that public feedback. It's important to the process and our ability to make wise decisions as a board. I will now close public communication portion of this meeting, and we'll move on unless Commissioner Savas, before I close it, it looks like you have a comment.
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate everyone being here today. A number of you are aware perhaps how complex this is. And back last year in November, when the board approved the staff to go ahead and meet with the library or the city managers regarding libraries, I voted no. And I voiced my concerns, which I'll again voice, and that was, wait a minute, it's more complex than that. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of issues, and I would, and nonetheless, some of that work's been done. The board has not taken any action, but it was my hope that as we went along, there would be more work sessions to help educate my colleagues and bring everyone up to speed and look at the new unique impacts to all the libraries that are, and not all of them are challenged, but a lot of them are challenged. And I've been at this or listening to this issue along with my colleagues since 2004. So I say I've been pretty close to it, and especially since being a county commissioner, I've heard directly from a number of libraries. Again, all the issues are unique, and though they're all unique, they have the one common denominator. The one common element is money, funding, whether that's a capital issue or whether that is a operations and maintenance issue, so, or both in some cases. So it's very clear that in about just a few years, this measure will be 20 years old, and looking at all the formulas and all the math, and again, always need to readjust that and understand how each individual city is funding their library. This library district, I'll say unfortunately, let's just say it is what it is, was not designed to replace city funding for libraries. It was to augment the current funding, which back in 2004, the cities were saying, we don't have enough money to operate these libraries. And the long and the short of it is that the city of Sandy, especially the city manager of Sandy, Scott Lazenby, a brilliant man. I think of him often, and I totally respect all the work all the city managers did under the leadership of Mr. Lazenby and the county staff that helped formulate this. And like anything, did we get it right? We came pretty close. Do we need to make adjustments? Absolutely. And that's the work session or work sessions discussion I think we need to think is, all right, what's going on with all these libraries? What are the unique needs and how do we fix this? And I really think, which is why I voted no, that a single try to put a fire out with a bucket of water here and then, while we're seeing smoke signals all around the county with issues with libraries, I really think a holistic approach brings everyone to the table. And the reason that's important is because any changes to the library district funding has to be approved almost unanimously by the cities as well as the Library District Advisory Committee, LDAC. So because of that requirement, which is, I think, a right thing, is well designed, I think, in that way that everyone's got, there's checks and balances to understand the unique things. As soon as I became a county commissioner, I heard from Oregon City. Shortly after, it was Milwaukee. Then going to the LDAC meetings, Gladstone, and the Gladstone thing blew up. I don't think, in hindsight, and I said it then, I'll say it again, I don't think that that was one flaw in the design of the library district as far as the formula, but I would say the formula distributions need to be recalibrated because it shouldn't be the sense that one or two or three libraries by design are, I won't say wealthy, but they don't have the current pressure, the financial pressures, let's say that, I'll just use a different library here, the Canby Library. So therefore, it seems to me that if we have winners, I won't say losers, but if we have winners and we have other libraries that are not doing so well, maybe there's a way to recalibrate. And I think that needs to be part of that discussion as well. So whether it's formula, whether it's this cash, or whether it's operations maintenance or capital, but I also think that we also need to make sure that if we build anything, including any of the libraries under construction right now, that they need to be sustainable. And the fact is that they're not. They're not sustainable from the aspect of operations and maintenance. So I'll use the 18-wheeler analogy. The 18-wheeler analogy is, if the library district is this 18-wheeler trucking down the road, and you're realizing that 5 or 6 tires are starting to lose air and go flat, I think we have to see that the fact is that putting air in one tire alone is not going to get the truck down the road, right? We need to figure out how we're going to get air in all the tires so that this library district can move forward and libraries can be sustainable and have sustainable funding. While I use the word sustainable, I'm always very concerned, and we're obviously all learning that all governments around the country are learning, I don't care what level of government you're at, that costs are outpacing their current revenues. And library district funding is fixed. The millage rate would probably be the solution to recalibrate that, and what that millage rate adjustment would be, I don't know. But what I do implore my colleagues to do is let's dig into the details in work sessions to figure out how we put air in all the tires. And I'm going to give you an example. I use Canby again. When Canby opened their library, and I was there, it was a great celebration. Martha, you were there too. That was a great day. I think they were open 7 days a week. I think they had morning Sunday hours, and then they had to cancel that. And then they cut the Saturday hours, and now they're closed on Sunday, they're closed on Saturday, and then they cut their Friday hours. So they are finding a way, and I just looked at the schedule. My understanding is that they were open at the same hours Monday through Friday. It can be, I could be wrong, but Friday hours are less than the Monday through Thursday hours. But I'll see the mayor tomorrow, and we'll talk again. But I have heard from almost every city about some of the pressures. And again, I think there's a couple of examples where they don't have financial issues, and Wilsonville being one of those, for example. But I think, again, the main thrust here is that we need to figure out how we're going to fix this, and that's going to take some surgical approach to this till we understand the problem and figure out how we do this in the way. In the meantime, I feel relatively certain that the libraries that are struggling have the means to go a few years, but they don't all, and they're going to need some kind of a fix within a matter of years. And again, I was hoping prior to COVID, LDAC had recommended, and the board took the initiative to support a holistic approach to this. The city managers, or not the city managers, the library district managers introduced here just a month ago at LDAC that they're taking on their own visioning process to figure out how they get this ball moving. But I think a holistic approach would get that, to make sure that all libraries are well-funded and maintained and can meet the needs of their residents equally. It's not fair for one library to have, I think, different access or hours than other libraries, and it should be balanced all the way around. But that's a partnership with the cities. This was a city-led initiative, and we're going to need the cities to make those adjustments. A lot said, but I'll leave it there. So, Chair, I would
I got a comment to make.
I would make a motion that we schedule a series of work sessions on libraries. So I move that we direct staff to schedule a series of I'm sorry, I'll repeat that. I move that we direct staff to schedule a series of work sessions on library district funding.
I have additional comments, and we can, I guess, bring those up during, after or during this discussion of this motion, but we do have a motion on the table, so I will now entertain a second for the motion.
I'm not going to second it because I think we need to make some comments first, Commissioner. Is that okay with you? I think, I agree. I think we're going in the right direction. But I know that Commissioner Shull wanted to make a few comments too. We could have done it during discussion, but let's just do it ahead of time. I think it might.
I'll reintroduce it.
It might
Okay.
ease the.
Will you table that motion for just a few minutes?
I'll withdraw it, and I'll put it back on the table later.
Okay, thank you. We have some lights here. Commissioner Shull, you were up next.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I do not think this is a complex issue. I think Hoodland Library is a unique situation. Like Commissioner Savas said, this issue has been going on since 2004. Well, as I recall, the year is 2020. Time to get something fixed. This library is a civic heart of one of our growing areas of Clackamas County that requires and asks for very little from county government. I think since the loss of the Dorman Center, the Hoodland Library has become even a more important civic center for the people of Hoodland. I made the motion in January to fund the $25,000 a year for 5 years. And that was with the intention of doing two things. One, to give the people of Hoodland a little bit of peace of mind about the future of their library and take the pressure off. And also to give a period of time that some of the things that Commissioner Savas has said should have been looked at 20 years ago could take place. This is not complex. It doesn't have to become a huge issue. I don't think that by pushing $25,000 out per year for 5 years to the Hoodland Library is going to cause any great consternation from any other library in the district. So it is my intention to do what I can, work with the people that are here today to enlighten and to effect the thinking of people on the board so that on 25 June at issues, when I make my motion that I made in January, when I make it again, that I will hopefully be successful in that motion. Thank you all for coming today, and thank you for your passion and your concern for the community that we all love called Hoodland. And I can't wait to get up there again pretty soon, to drive through there. I can tell you real quickly, I was up there for an event here not too long ago. Oh, I was that? And sat out there on the golf course looking up that beautiful valley having lunch. What a great place. So thanks a lot for your civic passion.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Scholl. I think I'm interested in figuring out how to find a long-term structural solution for all the libraries in the district that makes sure that these libraries have the resources they need to be successful. I do have a question for you, Commissioner Scholl. You've been a big advocate for core services in the county, and rightfully so. I understand why you would advocate for such a thing. Would you consider giving one library these funds a core service of the county? I'm just curious about your thoughts about that.
Yes, I would, because, again, I think the Hoodland issue, the Hoodland Library is a unique one. They need help. They need some peace of mind, some assurance that, A, their library is going to be around for the next 5 years, and some assurance that we're going to take some action. Like Commissioner Sava said, going back to 2004, it's time to take action to see what we can do to help them. Thanks.
I do have the chair here also. Chair Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you all. Commissioners, just for your information, this is listed on the green sheet for policy discussion to be scheduled. As you know, the regular order of business that has been established works very well. If you want to have a policy session on this issue, we bring it up on Tuesday under issues. At that time, we have a longer discussion, and we direct staff exactly what we want to look at, what the parameters are, and have staff bring back all the considerations that we need to look at in this library issue. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to get this teed up going forward. I think there's some disagreement on the Board of County Commissioners as far as history is concerned. If we were to make a cash allocation to this particular library, yes, it does open the floodgates to the other cities who, as Commissioner Savas has stated, may be having a deficit in their funding. I do think we should look at the millage rate, which means it's a referral to voters. And then we put it in the hands of the voters if they want to see an increase. The last time this happened, Clackamas County-wide, it passed. But as you know, we're in different economic times. We have many competing ballot measures from local jurisdictions. We have the schools, we have the fire departments, we have public safety. And up at the Hoodland area, we have the fire building that wants to be constructed, and they're gonna go out for a ballot measure, a bond, excuse me, to fund that. And so if we can do that, fine. I have no objections to it, but we need to look at the history and how we got here, because as what I think, and Jane Betta was in the room, what the legal staff is going to tell us, that we do need to take some time and thought into this. I've had discussions with the mayors of the cities on this issue, and they, so far in the past, have said they don't want to see any changes, but that doesn't mean that we can't bring the folks together and try to explain to them the situation going on with libraries. If this board wants to take some more action on it, number one, I recommend, Paul, that we go to the next Tuesday issues and updates, and we outline what we want to study on this issue, and then not do it in the business meeting, because the business meeting is not designed to do this, but I do understand your motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, for your comments. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I appreciate all the comments, and I don't have to make the motion today, but I just want to let you know, and, you know, if anyone can, well, I don't know where to begin. I don't want to go too long on this. We can talk about it at length, but all I can say is that, in my opinion, even this morning, in general, it's not about libraries here, but it's more about work sessions and discussion. I think that having a work session works much better than trying to take an issues morning or a business meeting morning and spend a lot of time on something that would be more efficient with staff preparation, with all the information, including in this case, shifting now, segueing into the library issue, had you seen the formula that's in the IGA, if anyone thinks that is simple and easy to understand, then you're a lot smarter than I am. And I'm sure there are people out there that are, there's no doubt. However, it is complex, and I think that formula needs to be recalibrated. Is it fair? And I would say that I think the intention of the library district is to make sure that that library services were as level and equal as possible, and they use the library standard as one of that. But is it fair, I guess, that a working family who gets home at normal hours and puts food on the table and is finally freed up at 7 or 8 o'clock at night and works Monday through Friday can't access a library? Is it fair? Is it right? I'd argue no. And libraries that are open on Saturdays, I think that community is fortunate because there are libraries that are open on Saturday, but not all. And is it fair, or should all the citizens in Clackamas County who pay into the library district have similar access? Absolutely. And that's not what's happening today. I think maybe at a time it was, and we were close, but I think that's why it needs to be recalibrated. That's why the distribution formula needs to make sure that not only are we meeting library standards, but people have equal access. And by the way, kids are part of that formula as well. Kids should have equal access. It's not just adults. It's the kids, families, seniors, everyone should have equal access in their community library. And right now we don't. That's all.
Commissioner Schrader.
Well, you all had me at hello with this because, as many of you know, I'm a librarian. I never planned on being an elected official. It was a big accident. I like to think I'm doing a good job, and I'm a legacy teacher as well. I have that under my belt. And I do think we need to address this issue of inequity. I think that everybody needs to have, well, you know the quote that always imagine that heaven is a kind of library. Okay, that's, I can't remember who the quote's from, but I always think about that. So my suggestion is this, and I was here, actually, we had started to talk about this in 2004. I was only on the commission for a year. And it was 2008 when we got together with actually George from Sandy, who was one of the biggest leaders, to get this measure passed. And I was very involved in that. I helped hire the campaign manager. And it was a huge victory for us at the time because this is a tax-averse county. But what we depended on was the fact that no one can say no to libraries. They are the bedrock of our democracy. So we passed it again. So I do think we're going to have to revisit. I think it's time, 20 years old. I can't believe I've been here that long. But in the final years that I am here, I would like to see this addressed. And I think the best way to do it is to have a work session. I'm going to inquire with our administrator about where we could get some dollars from before I say yes to that, because we'll probably have to cut something else out. But I think libraries are important, and we may have to do that. I do think they're core services. It's not in statute that they're core services, frankly, but I do think that they're a core service that we need to provide. So I think, colleagues, the best way to move forward is to follow the chair's advice, which she said. Let's get back to that. In the meantime, I would like to, Commissioner Shull, I just want to get clarity. If we move forward with $25,000 to help these folks out, I need to get some clarity of where that money's coming from and how we're going to balance it. I think it's worthwhile to do, but if you can give us just maybe another more time, so I can find out we can find out as colleagues where that's coming from and how we're going to balance that decision. I can get there. Okay, but we have to understand, as Gary has always said to us, if you take it from one place, something else is going to have to probably be reduced or eliminated. So I'm willing to go there, but I just want to be sure that we know how we can move this forward. So I would prefer not to vote on that today. I think we need to have that discussion. I am concerned that we've helped other libraries, it's true, and I want to be equitable to everyone. I have one question, though, for Nancy. Maybe you could help me out here. Now, is the city of Sandy still actually, is it under their umbrella that they are running that library as a?
I believe it's under the IGA that yes, that this is an arm of the City of Sandy's library.
Okay,
system.
so it's an arm of the city, so they are paying for the operations of it.
That's correct.
But the issue is that, so they have a librarian paid for by the city of Canby, correct? Yeah, oh.
Hold on,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we have that piece. So what we're really dealing with is, again, the physical structure piece of maintaining that library, and the city of Sandy is not allocating dollars for that.
So I think it's a good thing.
It's okay, I mean, I just
Yeah,
wanna
I think
know.
what we need to say here is that this is going to be on the issues next week, and we will have the appropriate staff in the room to be able to answer
Okay.
some of those detailed
Okay.
questions. But this is planned for issues next week.
Yep, and I totally agree with that. As you know, we have a
Okay,
couple minutes
okay.
left. We obviously, this is a business hearing, and this type of deliberation does not normally happen after public comment, but we are very much trying to be acutely aware of your effort and the drove that you made, the effort that you guys made. And so please know that we are wrestling with this, and we're going to try to find the right solution. I'll get to everybody. My lights went off. But I will say this, it looks like I'm the swing vote here right now on what we do. We've heard from all these commissioners as we move forward. I am interested in a systemic fix that is a win-win for everybody. And it can never be said that, as Commissioner Savas so wonderfully used the analogy or metaphor of, what did you say to me the other day? I'm going to try to, do you have an 18-wheeler? And you have the tires are starting to get low, but you only put air in one tire. But we want all of the libraries, which is our 18-wheeler, to have full tires and what they need. So I would entertain talking about that more broadly and moving as quickly as possible in that effort. That's where I'm leaning. I don't have quite the same perspective as my colleagues, Commissioner Scholl or Commissioner Schrader. However, I would like us to maybe close this conversation today and move forward in how we can really get down and dirty and figure out how we're going to work out this policy moving forward and really address it head on right now. And so that's the focus. And by the way, thank you for hosting me this week in the tour and visiting with me and getting to know all of you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. You were very hospitable. I appreciated your time. So we have that scheduled, am I right? We've already started this process?
We will have, yes, it will be on issues next week, so we'll put all the paperwork together and make sure we have the right staff going.
Okay, perfect. We look forward to that further conversation. And with that, Commissioner Schrader, yes.
Can people come and listen at the issue session? They can, right?
Oh, yeah, it's an
Okay,
open meeting,
so-
and it's also on Zoom as well.
Okay,
And then I have one more comment, it looks like from Commissioner Savas before we close this out.
Yeah, just so it's clear, so people aren't misunderstanding, the issue session will be talking about scheduling the meeting. It won't be about.
That is correct.
Right,
And-
right,
Okay,
right.
all
So
right, but we
We'll
will
have
be,
issues,
okay.
Yes, and we'll have the right staff here that in case there are some questions, but it is about, it's not
Yeah.
to move everything forward, it's to have
It-
that
yeah.
next discussion.
It isn't a quick, it's a quick decision on $25,000 a year for 5 years. That's a quick decision. However, that has brought up Pandora's box of all these other issues that we're talking about attached to it. So it lends itself to something much more significant than issues, in my opinion. So hopefully in issues, we'll talk about scheduling this, and then we'll continue to do the bigger work right away to find some solutions.
Chair, I want to complete my thought. And so thank you for the clarification. Well, we're not going to be talking about libraries other than scheduling how we get a work session
Yes.
going. So that, with that said, I just want to echo what Chair Smith has said. It is going to open the floodgates. That's my concern. If there is an immediate need that has to be addressed for a library, that I'm willing to look at it, but I'm also want to make sure that again, that floodgate issue, I don't see it. I can tell you right now, I already heard from already discussions this year that you're going to get the other library advocates saying the same thing. We lost our hours, we want the same. So, and I think the monetary ask is going to be different for each of those particular city libraries. So just be mindful of that we're not talking, if there's a short-term financial fix for one library, you got to calculate what that total is and just be mindful of that to be equitable.
No, I think that's one of the reasons we have to, know that 2008 was 20 years ago, and it worked very well for a very long time. Or reasonably well, I would say. But now it's time, and again, in my final days here, this is something I'd like to redress and make it whole.
Thank you. Well, let's move forward because we haven't even got to commissioner comments and we're in a business meeting. But we do have Chair Smith here. But I'd like us to get ready to move forward. Chair Smith?
Let me reiterate. It's just not, on Tuesday's issues, it's just not about setting a date. And I will disagree with some of the commissioners' comments. At Tuesday's issues, we will give staff direction
Okay.
Yeah.
on what to bring forth during the policy session. Since I've been chair, I've been very consistent in that. Commissioners, you must look at the green sheet that was approved today, and you will be shocked about the dates that are available for this. Now, I am more than happy to make this the top priority for the county in setting the date. But we haven't even set parameters of what we're looking at. We're just grasping at straws at today's business meeting. I would like to have a very concentrated discussion at next Tuesday's agenda, and I will sit with Gary, and I will write down what we are directing staff to do. Because if we don't direct staff to bring us certain information, then it will fall short. We're going to need more than one policy session. I understand this very much, but please take a look at the green sheet. And if I hear from commissioners, gee, I'd like it this day or this day, I'm more than happy to do that. But we also have other policy coming up too. And I implore you all to take a look at the green sheet for the next 2 months. And hey, I'm happy to do what the board wants to, but we need to be really intelligent and methodical at this and not just set a date and then be disappointed on that date when staff doesn't bring back the materials that we think they should bring back, yet we didn't take the time to tell them what to do. That's the only thing I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chair. I think those are great comments. We are going to bring this back. We're going to move forward. I'm going to end our public communication portion of this meeting. Thank you so much for your participation today and for all of the important comments made by this board on this issue that you guys brought forward. We very much appreciate you. So now that public communication is now closed. Looks like, Nancy, what's next?
All right, I do have some good news to share from the county administrator. So this week, the Public and Government Affairs mailed out a new annual publication called ClackCo, a guide to Clackamas County programs and services. The new service guide sent countywide relays the many ways that our residents can receive help for mental health support, medical care, emergency situations, road concerns, housing insecurity, coding enforcement, and much, much more. Early feedback has been positive, and we did receive this email. I was so very impressed with the latest ClackCo guide to programs and services. The articles were very well organized, and the layout made it easy to read the info, and I was most interested. It is a great guide, and I'm planning to send it to friends outside of Oregon who are planning to come out for a visit. Thanks so much for your work in putting this together. So thank you for PGA for getting that out and helping out with our residents as well as others. So, and then we also have another positive pothole story here. So we did hear from a Milwaukee resident, A big thanks to your crew for how quickly you came out to fix the potholes on my street. It was about 2 days after I filled out the form online, and they not only filled the pothole in front of my driveway, but lots of other ones that were on the street as well. I'm really impressed by the quick and thorough work. Thank you so much. So we want to just thank Department of Transportation and Development crews, and also remind everyone that we do try to get out to all of those potholes within 7 days. So great work there. And so, Vice Chair, I will turn it back over to you for Commissioner Communication.
Thank you, Nancy. We are now at Commissioner Communication, so we'll proceed forward with that. Now is the time for the commissioners to share their thoughts. I am going to start today with Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, okay, good morning. Clackamas County, I got to start off with a funny story for you on potholes. I got a call from a lady. She said, Commissioner Scholl, I'm getting sick and tired of these potholes in my street in front of my house. I said, ma'am, where do you live? She lives, I live right off Orient Drive and Oak Street. I said, ma'am, you live in Multnomah County. Have a nice day. Okay, on drugs and our kids. I've talked to you many times over the last few years about the need to educate our young children. I shouldn't have to say this, but I get reports more and more often about drugs being found in our K through 12 schools. I tell you, if there's anything that makes me upset, it's this subject. And I implore parents to do not assume your child, I don't care if your child's a first grader, you cannot talk to them enough about the dangers of killer drugs in our society. I would like you to start by going to the clackamas.us sheriff video website and look at the video done by the sheriff's office called No Second Chance, Brandon's Stories, about a young man who bought a Oxycontin pill, what he thought was Oxycontin, over the internet. He ingested it. It was laced with fentanyl, and he lost his life. Also, if you know somebody who is struggling with drug addiction, please do not hesitate. We have a few things online, the Oregon Substance Use Disorders Services Directory, and also the Recovery Network of Oregon, both online. And we also have a 24/7 phone number, 503-655-8585. If you know anybody who has a drug problem and needs help, needs addiction recovery, or needs counseling. Protect your kids now, because this problem is only getting worse. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about one of the reasons why it's getting worse. A new happy story. We have a new member of the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. His name is Gregor. He's a 2-year-old wire-haired black lab mix, trained as a drug sniffer dog. He works in our jail. So he is another reason why you don't want to come to Clackamas County and commit a crime, because Gregor's waiting for you.
I have a Labradoodle that I could help with.
On sanctuary cities, I've mentioned this several times before too, and it's getting to be more of a problem in my opinion. As you might recall, in 1987, Oregon became the first state to pass a law to make it a sanctuary state. Now, what does that mean? It means the law forbid police from turning over illegal aliens arrested to turning them over to federal law immigration police. The problem is getting worse with the porous border we're seeing. The operation of the cartels in Oregon is getting worse. And so you might recall just a couple years ago, one of the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel, who had been deported 8 times, was operating right out of this city, Oregon City, before he was finally imprisoned. So I ask people to become more aware of the 1987 sanctuary state law of Oregon. Contact your state representative, and let's see if we can't just get that law repealed so that we can become a more lawful state. And we can do that and still be compassionate to anybody who happens to be here living in the state of Oregon. On the Portland Water Bureau filtration plant, you've heard me talk about this before too. A couple days ago, 11 June, there was another meeting in east end of the county with a Cottrell CPO. 150 people were there fighting the Portland Water Bureau's $2 billion plus project plan for exclusive farmland just across the county line in Multnomah County. But it affects the east end of our county. And apparently big government spending upwards of about $1.5 million every other month to force this on the people, while the Cottrell CPO is struggling to get together a few tens of thousands of dollars for their legal defense. Now currently, they have an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on the use of farmland for this plant. We hope that people, rural people of the area prevail, but they could use your help with a donation for their legal fight. Go to www.cottrellcpo and see if you can help them out. I'd say a little bit about schools and K-12. You know, K-12 schools are not a decision maker issue on the Board of Commissioners, but as the years go by and I look at our K-12 schools struggling, I can't help but agree more and more on the need for school choice, parents' ability to send their kids to a school that's more conducive to their learning. So please, if you have a child in K-12, go to School Choice for Oregon. It's online. Read up about it. See what you can do to help out with the effort to bring school choice to Oregon. And finally, for those of you who are over 32 years old, on this day in history, in 323 BC, Alexander the Great died at a place called Al-Hilah, which is near present-day Baghdad. Keep that in mind. If you live hard, you die young. Have a nice day, Clackamas County.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, it's been a long morning already, so I'm going to be brief, and before I forget, I just want to remind you all that tomorrow, in the afternoon, we'll be having our annual C4 retreat. Day one will be the discussion about transportation funding. We have fortunately, we're going to have the two vice chairs or co-chairs of the Joint Committee on Transportation, two legislators, Susan McLean on the House side and Senator Gorsuch on the Senate side. I don't know how long they'll be there. They may be there for the entire thing. So hopefully we'll have a constructive dialogue on yet another funding matter, another funding crisis that we're all experiencing. Inflation is just eating away at families. It's eating away at us everywhere. And, I think that the horizon remains uncertain for whether or not we're going to maintain where we are, or there's going to be a recession or a depression, or we're going to get better. Hopefully things get better, but inflation has to come down. It was just yesterday, my wife goes shopping on Wednesday, and so she came back from the store, and, a bag of groceries I kind of did on the cost per bag, which is now, practically about $50 a bag anymore. And we eat pretty modestly, frankly, so, but nonetheless, you know, almost everything's $5 or more, $7 or more, I mean, it's just just the cost of food is just, it's just unfortunate. I just, every time I look over the receipt and I think about how much we spent for just the two of us and a cat, I just think about how other families are actually surviving. I just know that people are not, you know, we all don't make the same amount of money, and our needs and families, of course. I came from a family of 7, so I grew up poor and hungry, and I know what that's like, so I just reflect back on that. So getting back to the C4 retreat Saturday will be about housing, another financial crisis that we have, but how it impacts our residents. The cities, it'll be state law or Goal 10 puts a lot of responsibility on cities when it comes to housing. This will be, I think, I won't say city-led, but it'll be probably city-centered for the most part, and how we help them or help ourselves or work together. So I'm interested in seeing how that comes together for Saturday, and looking for, again, a good constructive dialogue. So that's my, before I forget, announcement is the importance of Friday and Saturday. Hope to see you there. If you can only make it one day, that's understandable. The other thing I want to just talk about is that on the transportation side, more, again, discussion, just getting back to that briefly, and think about the well-intended legislation over the years for different reasons, and dating back to 1975. So I want to plant the seed and think about it. But the CAFE standards were established by the federal government in 1975, and the reason the CAFE standards were set was to reduce our reliance on imported oil. And the CAFE stands for the corporate average fuel economy, which basically over years forced corporations, if you're going to sell a vehicle in the United States, that your corporate average fuel economy has to go up, meaning better gas mileage. And so you can't just sell gas guzzlers, you need to sell a balanced amount. And that was implemented over a number of years. And then came the environmental air quality standards that rolled on that. And then that was folded into the technology in which we all enjoy today in our cars, which are pretty sophisticated. And as we phase out of, again, as a result of more regulation, as we phase out of fossil fuel powered cars and looking at other energy sources like electric and fuel cell hydrogen technology, that again is the death knell for the Highway Trust Fund and the funding for all of the Department of Transportations in all the states of this country. So this is a national issue. It's not unique to Oregon. And tomorrow is not about solutions. It's about recognizing how we got here and how maybe we can work to our legislatures to develop what our values are. It's not about identifying a funding source or what that amount should be or shouldn't be. Hopefully it'd be educational and collaborative. With that said, I will yield for today.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, we started off talking a little bit about education, and I am, as I said, a legacy teacher, but I wanted to give a shout out to one of our other legacies in this county, and that is Clackamas Community College. Tomorrow, they're going to be graduating a number of students. They are one of our best allies when it comes to workforce development in terms of getting young people on pathways to good paying careers. One of the things they do very well is that they work on water and environmental issues, and a number of our folks that work for water and environment services have actually gotten their training at that particular college with that specialty area, and they do many other things. You can get your math skills, you can start preparing to going into a trade, you can do welding, you can do car automation, and we work very closely with our high schools, and now oftentimes our junior high schools, to make sure that folks, younger or older students, get on their pathways to good-paying careers so they can be prosperous and participatory citizens in our democracy. And I think that's particularly important. And one of the things I'm working on right now with the Oregon City School District is that I'm looking at a curriculum about why counties matter. And I've gotten the 2 thumbs up from our administrator, but I promised that I would do all the work, and the policy advisors don't have to worry. I'm going to try and pull together what we would call an internship program, where it's really dealing with all the kinds of things that counties do, why county government is important, and I'll be working with the school district. They'll be able to give youngsters some credit. I'm hoping if this is successful, I can continue to do some of that education work as my role as a county commissioner with other young people that are interested in public service, because I think that's the key. I've always said I was glad I did this out of public service. I actually am an entomologist too. Many of you know that. I was a beekeeper and studied blueberry pollinators. So I never came to this position or this job with any notion of being an elected official. And I think it's helpful to have different perspectives as you move into these kind of roles. I think it makes you a better official. I think that it gives you a different perspective. And I think the key is to do it as public service, not because you're trying to be, important in any way. It's really about public service. So a big shout out to Clackamas Community College. I'm looking forward to this program. I'll let you all know how it works. And I'm looking forward also, knock on wood, we have a large group of motivated people here today that let me just be positive and say when we move forward looking at this library issue, we're going to need all of you as campaign volunteers to help get this through the county so people once again are reminded about how important our library system is to our citizens. So thank you. That's all I got today.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. Chair Smith.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Thank you, commissioners, for the great conversations. I'm very happy to be able to Zoom in. My health is improving daily. When I'm released to drive, I will attend in person, but the doctor says, nah, you just stay right where you're at. Your voice is just fine. So as my desire to attend in person and be with you all, I'm not released yet from the doctor. When I'm able to drive, I'll come in and attend in person. In the meantime, I appreciate all the comments and considerations going forward as we do good work for Clackamas County. We have a lot of really heavy policy decisions coming up, all of which this board says this is a priority. So I want to remind everybody, including the people online, if everything is a priority, then what are we doing here? So on Tuesday, please bring your concerns about the library issue forward, and we will schedule the sessions. Look at your PAs for the green sheet and what's on there, and we'll do the very best we can to get this moving. Thank you all. I'm very happy to represent Clackamas County and moving the county forward. See you all later.
Thank you, Chair, for the good news and the update. We wish you a quick recovery as you get better, and thank you for continuing to do the work during that process. I guess I'm up. I won't add too much more. We have had a really busy week. I know that tonight, I think Commissioner Savas and I don't know if the other commissioners will be attending the city's dinner in Milwaukee and have important conversations with those other elected officials here in the region. We also have the C4 retreat, which is happening Friday, and we're going to be up in your guys' backyard right by that library at the resort on the mountain right there with the representatives from 16 different cities, the Board of County Commissioners, two legislators that are chairing the Joint Committee on Transportation, which having been conversation with that. And so the first day is transportation, the second day is housing. And so we do this annually as collaborative work at a local level with our legislators. That's a big deal coming up. And then I don't know if you're going to be attending all the AOC meetings Monday and Tuesday. This is an event that also happens in meetings with the Association of Oregon Counties, which Clackamas County belongs to. And we'll be doing a lot of work around priorities for the Association of Oregon Counties, where we're going to miss some of those meetings just because we have our own meeting to run here, but then I'll be running back and forth from here and down to Salem and back again. So just the next 5 to 7 days are pretty busy and packed for us. So I look forward to doing that work and reporting back to all of you what had happened, what happened during those efforts. So with that, I'm seeing no further comments. Thank you for holding tight with us, public. We're a little bit past our normal scheduled time, but it was all good, important stuff that we talked about. And with that, this is seeing no further business for this meeting, for this business meeting, we are adjourned.